don't like a new dock, and I don't like high traffic docks. I like a dock that runs both parallel and perpendicular. The fish will hold there at both high and low tide. There's a lot of fish in the corners of docks. So docks with a lot of vegetation tend to hold fish for longer periods of time. They're going to go to the nearest deep water. Don't choose your docks by what you'd like to park your boat on. Choose your docks by some of the things we talk about that are holding fish. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in today. You're watching In Deep on the Delta. My name is Steve Cooper, and today we're talking about dock fishing. Docks are one of the most overlooked structures on the entire Delta. I see guys blowing by them all the time, and it seems like a lot of folks never stop to fish them. And if you're one of those guys, you're really missing out on some great fishing. So today we're going to talk about everything you need to know about fishing docks. We're going to talk about baits, strategies, techniques, what to look for in a good dock, what dock you want to leave alone. We're going to cover everything. So let's get right into it. Come on, baby. Come on out of there. There we go. This one's been caught before. Not a huge fish, but it was a fun one. All right, guys, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the baits that I like to use fishing around docks. And I'm going to give you some of my the 5 go-to baits that I have, and then I'm going to talk about some specialty baits that you may not be fishing that I think will be interesting for you. Number one, when I'm around docks, especially in the summer when they're holding vegetation, a punch rod is a necessity. I use a D-bomb or a beaver, something of that nature, green pumpkins, blacks and blues, standard stuff. I'll also use a T-rigged worm, usually about a quarter to a half ounce weight on it. And sometimes I'll throw a D-bomb or a kinky beaver on this. It's hard to get away from just the old standard wacky rig, Cinco, or cut tail worm. You always need one of those when you're on the Delta. And again, standard colors. Green pumpkins are my go-to. Watermelon in the spring and in the fall, I'll definitely have a Vision 110 or a small jerk bait on to fish parallel with the docks. When the fish are active, these can be a real killer. Now here's a few things that I like to use that you may not be using out here. The little Mega Bass Dark Sleeper is a killer out here. It's a small profile and it can be pitched in around the corners of the docks and just worked around the edges, and this can be a killer. The Mega Bass Dark Sleeper. If you're going to be using a drop shot around here, I found a little worm that's made by the Big Bite Bait Company, and it's called the squirrel tail worm. This guy here is full of air. When it's drop shotted or when it's fished on a T-rig, the tail floats up, and just the slightest twitch makes this tail move around. This is a really cool little worm. I like fishing flukes around docks, and generally I'll simply nose rig them on a small mosquito hook or whatever you call it, and this works great around the edges. But when you want to pitch the fluke underneath into the docks, there's a separate way that I'll rig them. And basically I'll take a nail weight, and I'm using a great big one here, I'm not going to really rig it, but I take a nail weight and I run it into the nose of the fluke. And again, I'd probably only use about half of this nail weight. So I have that nail weight in there, and then I'm going to take the same hook and I'm going to rig it right like that. The nail weight in the head, hook here. When I pitch this bait into a dock, it's going to float away from the boat, so it can be pitched right in under the dock, and it'll swim underneath the dock. So this is a good trick to try when you're trying to get under the docks into the shade. The last bait that I'll talk to you about that you may not be using is the Jackall Cover Craw, and it has the same action of a backward rigged fluke where it shoots in under the dock. These baits are made to move away from the boat. Now they come in a 3-inch size and they come in a 4-inch size. I use both of them, and we're going to rig it backwards, meaning most of the time you would want this bait moving this way, but we rig it backwards. And I'm just going to take this hook and it's going to be rigged like that, and when I pitch this in, it will dive this way. I just let this bait sit out there. When the tide is not moving, the fish are really inactive, this little guy here will pick up a lot of fish. It doesn't pick up a lot of big fish, but it'll get you some action. When I'm really serious, I go to the 4-inch. You can see the difference there. And what I do on this is the same thing. We're going to rig it backwards. Most of the time, you would be rigging this bait like this. But what we do here is simply poke that in just about 1/4 of an inch, pull it through, pop it around, and we're going to rig the bait like this so that it's going to fall this way. Line is right here. We're going to pitch this in under a dock, and it's going to go right in under the dock. So this bait here will float away from your cast, meaning if the edge of the dock is here and this hits the water, it's going to fall like this under the dock. It generally moves about 1 foot per 1 foot of depth. So if you have 4 feet of water, this thing may go under the dock 4 feet. That can be a big killer in the summertime because most guys, especially if you only have an inch or so to pinch under the dock, can't get those good casts under there. So if you hit this thing 6 inches from the edge of the dock, it's still going to work its way down under the dock. So that's the jack-all cover craw. So let's go out and work some of these baits around the docks. All docks are not created equal, so let's take a look at a few of the docks we wouldn't necessarily fish for one reason or another. This particular dock has plastic floats, and I prefer the old wood floats or mature styrofoam. Both wood and styrofoam tend to grow moss and hold bait fish. Also note the steel pillars that are holding this dock in place. I prefer wood telephone poles. Again, they hold moss and hold the bait fish. Although this dock has wood pilings, there's still not a lot there. Plastic floats, it's only running parallel to the bank, just not a lot there to hold fish, so I'd pass on this dock also. Here's a dock we might want to keep an eye on, not necessarily for the dock itself, but it's holding surface vegetation, so it's giving us a great place to punch. Another dock that's holding some surface vegetation, and a dock that we want to take a look at. It's got pillars, it's got some perpendicular docks coming out from vertical docks, and it also has some great corners that we like to fish. Let's take a look and see what happens when we get up to this corner. So there it is, right in the corner of the dock, right where you would expect it to be. So never pass up fishing the corners of a dock. We're pulling up to my kind of party. An old, mature dock. It's got wood pillars, wood pilings, vegetation. Everything looks good on this dock. This is a dock that you wouldn't want to pass up. It also has about 3 feet of water underneath the dock. So we're looking for at least 18 inches, but 3 feet, this is a blessing. Let's take a look and see what happens. I've caught a couple fish on the outside and we've reached the end of the dock, so we're going to pull around and fish the inside of this dock and see what happens there. It's slack tide, so I'm not expecting a whole lot of action, but as you can see along this last dock here, I've picked up 3 keeper fish. I'm hoping I'm going to get a big one, but I'm going to stay right in next to that shade. Just let the Senko fall all the way to the bottom. Let it sit there for a moment, and then just touch it a couple of times, and then move on to your next spot. A lot of times as this thing's falling down, it can be a really violent strike. Right there is where I think there should be a fish. And it's there. Good job. All right. Okay. Not a bad little fish. But you saw where that fish came out of. Right underneath that floating, looks like some type of pennywort or something there. The fish didn't hit it on the way down. It waited until the bait was on the bottom. It had been soaked there for a minute. Here's a couple of more great docks to be fishing. This dock runs both parallel and perpendicular to the bank. It'll hold fish at both high and low tide. It's got plenty of surface vegetation. It looks like it doesn't get a whole lot of boat traffic. A great dock to fish. It's also next to a dock that runs parallel with the bank. This would be a great dock to throw your flukes or jerk baits right along the edge of that dock. So you would want to pass these docks up. Really good docks to fish. Okay, we've pulled up to another set of docks, and I've done well on these docks in here. They're not great looking, but they do have two of the structures that I look for. Docks that are running parallel with the bank and out vertical. What I'm going to try to do is pull the boat up into here, and I'm going to just punch that drop off. Even though it doesn't look like there's anything in there, I know from prior fishing that there is a drop off there. I used to catch a lot of them on the inside of this dock. So I'm going to see if I can get something in there, and we'll see if something's still in there. This is one of those docks that unless I knew what was going on in here, I wouldn't fool around in here. I'd fish the outsides of these docks, along the edges, in the shade, and then right up in the corners. You'll see when we go around there that there's vegetation growing in around some of these docks, and that could be a place we might get some fish. So let's give it a try and see what happens. I'm going to try a 1/2 ounce T-rig to get in here. My drag's not good. I didn't get a good hook set. Oh, this is good fish here. I guess they're still in here. What the heck? Oh, yes. So there we go, guys. Boy, I got him just in the nick of time. Boy, look at this thing. Woo! A good reason to keep this fish punched. Look at that hole in his mouth at this hook set. That would have just slipped out of there. You can see that hole. A nice fish. Came right where I've caught him before, right on the edge of that dock. This is a great dock here. It runs both vertical and parallel to the bank. So at low tide, if the fish are in shallow, they don't feel like they have enough sanctuary. They don't feel comfortable in that real shallow water. They can move out to this dock here, and they can get out in here and get a little deeper water. The other thing that I like about this dock is it catches hyacinth. You got a good map that we can punch in here, and also you've got pilings all over. So you have horizontal structure, vertical structure, and you've got surface cover. It's got everything that you need to fish a dock. Okay, that's it. It's not everything you need to know about dock fishing, but if you haven't been fishing docks, it's a good place to start. Glad you watched the video. If you liked it, please subscribe, please hit the like button, and we'll be doing more informative videos out here on the Delta. All right, before I sign off, I'd like to run one thing by you guys. I'm going to start posting some weekly Delta reports, giving you water temperatures, water clarities, what the hyacinth's doing. If I see them out here spraying, I'll let you know where they're spraying. I'll let you know what I'm catching them on, what I'm not catching them on, and just a general report. And I'll try to do that weekly. I'll give you an honest report. So if you're interested in that, please hit that reply button and say, Steve, yeah, I would be interested in having a weekly report just to see what's going on. I promise it won't be more than about 2 to 4 minutes, and I think it could be helpful for a lot of you guys. So again, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys on the water. Thanks for watching.